that is a serious person still argues that human beings did not originate in the Nile Valley in Africa, which was the essence of the argument that he made. So I say all this to come back to your point. I say, if we had this knowledge, then our young people and our people generally, African people, African descendants, would not be subjected to this sense of inferiority complex that is intentionally instilled. And let me give you one final observation to address the same question that you posed. The purpose of doing this is to keep non-Europeans divided, to keep African people divided. So look, you have an African continent with a population of 1.3 billion people. You have 54 countries, meaning you have 54 separate governments. Is it surprising that the African continent has some of the world's most impoverished people on the one hand, and has all of the world's resources at the same time? Think about that. China, in 1960, the per capita income of China was $90, 89 to be precise, according to World Bank stats. The per capita income of Ghana was about $280. Think about that. 1960, let's start a long time ago. Today, China is a superpower. Is that not correct?
No, you're right. You're right, definitely.
Look at where Ghana is. And Ghana is one of the African countries that actually is doing very well. So I say this to make this point. If we had a United States of Africa, then the African continent would be a global power and would be wealthier than even China. Because even China, that has now caught up to many of the Western countries, is using Africa's resources to build its wealth. So if we had a United States of Africa, any country coming to Africa wanting resources, they would pay the price that African countries want to sell those resources for.
Okay, I get
But
what you're
instead,
saying.
They come and they buy at any price they want.
I got it. Because you're saying there's 54 countries in Africa,
Yes.
but everyone's operating individually.
Exactly. And
they
that's
came
how the Europeans would prefer it. Because then you can go there and get the uranium literally for free. France would not be the power it is today without uranium from countries like Niger in Africa, right? Because France relies on nuclear energy for its energy consumption, including electricity. 75% of that comes from nuclear power. And you don't have nuclear power without uranium. And France does not have uranium, has to go to a country like Niger. So you ask yourself, why is it that Niger is one of the so-called poorest countries in the world, and France is one of the wealthiest countries in the world? How is it possible? How is it possible that the country that has the resources that is making France wealthy is not also wealthy at the same time? The answer is quite simple. It means they're literally stealing the uranium. Otherwise, it would make sense logically that Niger should also be wealthy if the beneficiary of its resources is wealthy. And this is the importance of the propaganda demonizing African people so that African people start thinking that, in fact, they are indeed inferior compared to Europeans. And then Africans don't want to associate with other Africans. Africans don't want to associate with African descendants in this country, African Americans. African Americans don't want to associate, within the African American community, because to them, I want to get to where the goods are. And the goods are manifest in being European.
White society and white society. Now, what do you think it's going to take? Because me and you are on the same page that getting a clear understanding of history, at least for me, that has helped me clearly put things in perspective that I look at in this country and really put me in a position mentally where not only I want to see things clearly, but I want to help out.
Yes.
So what do you think it's going to take to get, because you're speaking about things that have been going on for a really long time. So what do you
Right.
think it's going to take for us as a people, African and African Americans? What do you think it's going to take for us as a people to come to an understanding that some form of unifying on our own,
Right.
like without any outside interference, some form of unifying may be the only way to free us from like the colonialism and all the frankly the white supremacy that we have to deal with in this country and abroad.
Right. It will take the kind of conversation that we're having right now. It will take the knowledge, Look at how knowledge can transform individuals. I'll look at individual first, and then I'll look at society. So when I discuss individual, look at Malcolm X. I don't think there's a better story than the transformation of Malcolm Little to Malcolm X. Here is a person who did not have formal education in the terms of college education, but taught himself. Because now he had the natural intelligence, of course, but he had been learning the wrong things, right? Because he was subjected to the same kind of propaganda that many young people are subjected to into this country.
Mm-hmm.
That his universe was that, what is the best I can do? Be a low-time criminal, be a hustler, be a pimp. That was his universe. But once he started absorbing that knowledge and got to know himself and the history from where he comes from, he realized the possibilities ahead of him. At the end of his life, he was addressing, one of the last universities he addressed was Oxford University in the United Kingdom, one of the top universities in the world. He addressed Harvard University. All the major universities wanted to hear from him because he had an understanding of history, understanding of politics, understanding from where he came from, and the possibilities going ahead. So that is the transformation of one individual based on knowledge. And for people that have not heard the Oxford Union debate, I also recommend you go to YouTube and search for Malcolm X Oxford Union debate and just listen to his articulation. And he also knew the power of the media. I gave you an example earlier when he spoke about you can't hate the roots of a tree without hating the tree. Mm-hmm. But at the Oxford Union debate, he's also talking about how Africa is being demonized in the media. And he was talking about the crisis in the Congo in 1960, when the rightful Pan-African elected Prime Minister, Patrice Lumumba, was murdered by the West. And they installed a puppet in Mobutu and Moise Tshombe, who were taking care of the interest of the multinational corporations. They killed Mobutu. And Malcolm is talking about that. And he's saying how the media glorified people like Tshombe, who was installed to replace Patrice Lumumba, and how they demonized Lumumba at the same time. He knew the power. So that's an individual. Now, look at how knowledge can transform a country. Tiny country called Burkina Faso, used to be called Upper Volta. And then in 1983, he had this young military officer who was very conscious, who came into power and changed the name of the country. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. Upper Volta. That's some name given to the French when they were the